They say the devil works in mysterious ways, but in the dead of night, beneath a shroud of darkness, his methods aren't mysterious. They're deliberate, chilling, and oh so personal. Among his many legends is the tale of the Devil's Hand, a story that's as old as sin itself. The story begins with Clara Holloway, a midwife in a quiet village nestled deep in a valley where the sun seemed reluctant to shine. Her touch was gentle, her presence comforting, and for years, she brought life into the world with a smile that seemed heaven-sent. But life is cruel, and fate, well, fate doesn't play fair. One bad outcome, just one, and suddenly Clara wasn't an angel anymore. The whispers started small, as they always do. Maybe it was her touch, someone murmured. Maybe she cursed the child, another said. By the time the next winter rolled in, Clara wasn't a midwife. She was a witch. The village turned on her with a ferocity that could only come from guilt and fear. Clara was dragged to the edge of the forest, where the trees grew so dense the moonlight barely dared to enter. Her hands, those hands that had once brought life, were severed as punishment for the death they claimed she caused. They thought cutting off her hands would stop her. It didn't. As the story goes, Clara didn't die that night. No, she bargained. Her screams echoed through the forest, reaching ears that no mortal would dare to summon. And when silence finally fell, it wasn't because Clara had succumbed to her fate. It was because the devil had arrived. He gave her a choice, vengeance or peace. Clara chose vengeance, and with it came a terrible price. She was granted a new hand, one crafted from shadow, fire, and malevolence itself. They called it the Devil's Hand for a reason. The hand could kill with a single touch, snuffing out life as easily as blowing out a candle. Of course, Clara didn't stop at just her accusers. Once you get a taste for vengeance, it's hard to stop, isn't it? They say she haunted the village for decades, her dismembered, ghostly figure wandering the woods, her hand glowing faintly like embers in the night. She touched crops, and they withered. She touched animals, and they fell dead. But it wasn't until she touched the villagers themselves that they realized their mistake. One by one, they vanished, dragged into the shadows with a faint, fiery handprint burned into their skin. Eventually, the stories turned into warnings. The Devil's Hand became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of guilt, suspicion, and giving in to the darkness within. But humans, being the wonderfully curious creatures we are, couldn't leave well enough alone. Somewhere along the way, summoning rituals began. Stand under the oldest tree in the forest at midnight. Light a black candle. Say her name 3 times. Clara Holloway, Devil's Hand. You know, your standard spooky summoning setup. And if you're brave, or reckless, enough to complete the ritual, Clara will appear. Or at least, something that looks like Clara. She's said to be a gaunt figure now, her face pale and sunken, her eyes like hollowed pits of darkness. But it's her hand that's the real star of the show. The Devil's Hand still glows faintly, as though it's burning with a fire that can never be quenched. It moves independently, almost as if it has a will of its own. Some say it twitches, eager to touch you, to snatch your life away in an instant. And here's the twist, summoning her isn't always a death sentence. Sometimes she just watches, her hand hovering over your chest, inches from your heart. You can feel the heat radiating from it, smell the faint scent of sulfur in the air. And then, if she's in a good mood, she lets you go. But if she isn't, well, no one really knows what happens after she takes you. Maybe she drags you to the same forest where she lost her hands. Maybe she pulls you into the devil's realm itself, where you'll spend eternity as his plaything. The legend of the Devil's Hand has endured because it taps into something universal, the fear of justice gone wrong, of vengeance that knows no bounds, of making a bargain you can't escape. And of course, there's the hand itself. It's more than just a symbol, it's a reminder that what we touch can define us. Clara touched life and death, and in the end, it consumed her. To this day, people still claim to see her in the woods, her hand glowing faintly through the mist. Some say you can hear her whispering, the words soft but laced with venom. Why did you call me? So, if you ever find yourself standing beneath an old tree at midnight, clutching a black candle and debating whether to say her name, remember this: the Devil's Hand isn't just a story. It's a promise. A promise that Clara Holloway is still out there, still searching for those foolish enough to summon her, and still ready to reach out with a touch that burns hotter than hell itself.